but by their victories on the battlefield. Lysara, the protagonist, is introduced as a figure of mythic prowess, a warrior whose skill, speed, and strength are unmatched. From the outset, she is depicted as someone larger than life, a being who has repeatedly survived conditions and challenges that would have killed even the most seasoned combatants. Her glowing silver eyes are not just a physical trait, but a symbol of her extraordinary nature and the fear she inspires in those around. Her Lysara's reputation is central to understanding the social environment of Vera. Other warriors and inhabitants view her with a mixture of awe and fear. She is untouchable, not only because of her combat abilities, but also because of her emotional distance. Lysara is a solitary figure, one who has endured countless battles and personal hardships. These experiences have left her guarded, with walls around her heart that no one has penetrated. The story emphasizes that her fearsome reputation is not only based on physical strength, but also on the aura of danger and authority she exudes. Lysara is more than a warrior. She is a legend whose presence alone demands respect and caution. The narrative then introduces a pivotal element, the arrival of humans on Vera, humanity. In the context of the story represents curiosity, resilience, and a different perspective on social interaction. Captain Jace Holden, a human diplomat and seasoned fighter, is assigned to the planet by the Galactic Council. Unlike the Varans, who are intimidated or reverential toward Lysara, Jace approaches her without fear. This contrast is critical. It immediately sets up the dynamic between the untouchable alien warrior and the human who is not bound by her reputation. Jace's calm, confidence, and lack of hesitation stand out as unusual and intriguing too. Lysara. The first official encounter between Lysara and Jace is carefully constructed to highlight their differences. Lysara, accustomed to fear and submission, expects either awe or defiance from anyone who meets her. Instead, Jace greets her with respect and measured curiosity. He does not seek to challenge her dominance, but rather expresses a desire to understand and observe. His statement, "I hear you're quite extraordinary. I'd like to see for myself," is key. It demonstrates human directness and openness. Unlike the Varans, who might praise her from a distance or attempt to ingratiate themselves, Jace confronts the situation with honesty and bravery. This encounter subtly establishes the beginning of a bond built on mutual recognition rather than intimidation or obligation. Part 1 also lays the groundwork for Lysara's internal conflict. She is intrigued and unsettled by a being who treats her differently from everyone else. This is the first seed of emotional complexity in the story. Lysara's curiosity is piqued not by physical attraction, but by the novelty of someone who sees her as more than just a weapon or a symbol of fear. The human diplomat embodies qualities that her own people rarely display: empathy, courage, and an interest in understanding rather than conquering or submitting. Finally, this part establishes the story's central tension and thematic premise. Lysara is untouchable, feared, and isolated, yet the arrival of a human who treats her differently begins to challenge her long-held perceptions of herself and others. The juxtaposition of Lysara's mythic, untouchable persona with Jace's calm human courage sets the stage for her eventual emotional transformation. The narrative cleverly sets up a contrast between fear and connection, strength and vulnerability, and isolation versus companionship. In summary, Part 1 introduces the reader to the world of Vera, establishes Lysara's unmatched skills and untouchable reputation, and presents the human character, Jace, whose fearlessness and curiosity set him apart. Through their initial interactions, the story begins to explore themes of emotional isolation, the power of human empathy, and the possibility that even the most untouchable beings can be reached through courage and genuine recognition. It sets a compelling stage for the relationship and personal growth that will unfold in subsequent parts. Shifts. The story from introduction to interaction, focusing on the growing bond between Lysara, the untouchable alien warrior, and Jace, the human diplomat. Whereas Part 1 established Lysara's legendary prowess and untouchable status, Part 2 explores the human qualities that begin to challenge her perceptions and gradually chip away at the walls around her heart. This part emphasizes emotional development, cultural contrast, and the subtleties of human empathy, setting the stage for the eventual romantic and emotional connection between the two characters. The narrative begins with the passage of time, showing that their initial encounter has evolved into repeated, purposeful interactions. Jace does not simply observe Lasara once and leave. He spends time learning about her world, her history, and her character. This deliberate effort to understand her is key to why Lasara begins to feel something unfamiliar: curiosity and ultimately emotional intrigue. Unlike the Varens, who approach her with fear, respect for rank, or personal ambition, Jace treats her as an individual rather than a symbol of power. This distinction is central to Part 2. It highlights one of the core human traits: curiosity coupled with empathy that begins to differentiate humans in the story from other alien species. There, walks through Vera's jagged terrain are not merely scenic interludes. They function as symbolic spaces where the traditional hierarchies of the Varen society are suspended. On these treacherous cliffs and desolate landscapes, Lasara is not a warrior surrounded by followers, and Jace is not a diplomat performing ceremonial duties. Instead, they are two individuals communicating on an equal footing, exchanging thoughts, observations, and questions. This freedom allows Lasara to reveal facets of herself that no one else has witnessed. She is cautious but intrigued, learning that human interaction does not always equate to power struggles or hierarchical posturing. A pivotal moment in this part is Jace's question: "What drives you, Lasara? Is it honor, duty, or something else?" This simple inquiry is remarkable because it penetrates the very core of Lasara's identity. She is accustomed to being measured by her victories, her efficiency in combat, and her adherence to duty. No one has ever asked about her motivations, her feelings, or her internal struggles. The question forces her to reflect on herself in a way she has avoided for centuries. Her response, "I survive." That is all, indicates both her habit of emotional restraint and the influence of a life hardened by battles and isolation. Jace's reaction to her response is subtle but crucial. He acknowledges her survival without judgment, and then introduces the idea that life might contain more than duty or mere survival. His statement, "Even the strongest must find something worth more than just survival," is a thematic linchpin of the story. It plants the seed that Lasara's life might have dimensions she has never explored: companionship, trust, and even emotional connection. The narrative here emphasizes that human influence in this universe is not through brute force, but through relational intelligence and moral courage. Part 2 also contains the training exercise scene, which functions as both a demonstration of physical prowess and a narrative device for emotional connection. When Jace instinctively catches her mid-strike, Lasara is surprised, not just by his skill, but by his confidence and willingness to engage with her directly. This moment illustrates a key HFY theme. Humans can match or even surpass alien abilities not only through physical skill, but through ingenuity, courage, and the ability to perceive opportunity differently. Her reaction, bafflement, and a growing sense of intrigue marks the first crack in her emotional armor. Throughout Part 2, Lasara's internal struggle is emphasized. She begins to experience curiosity about someone she cannot dominate or intimidate. This is significant because it contrasts with her experience with her own species, where power and fear dictate relationships. For the first time, she's confronted with a being whose presence is neither submissive nor aggressive, but genuinely interested in her as a person. This subtle psychological tension is central to the HFY dynamic. Human empathy and courage have the power to challenge centuries-old social norms and perceptions. Is the pivotal turning point in the narrative, where the emotional bond between Lasara and Jace moves from curiosity and subtle intrigue to direct personal significance. This section focuses on action, danger, and the first overt demonstration of care that challenges Lasara's deeply ingrained isolation. It is in this part that the story shifts from character exploration to high-stakes interaction, emphasizing both the HFY humans, our extraordinary theme, and the romantic tension. Between an alien warrior and a human, the narrative begins with a diplomatic event orchestrated by the Galactic Council. These gatherings serve as a backdrop for political intrigue. Showcasing the broader stakes of the story beyond individual characters, the Council's assembly includes representatives from neighboring planets, making it a highly formal and symbolically charged environment. This setting underscores Lysara's dual role. She is not only a legendary warrior, but also a protector and enforcer of peace. The assembly is intended to demonstrate unity and strength, but it quickly becomes a stage for conflict when an ambush erupts. The sudden attack by raiders heightens tension and provides the story's first major action sequence. Lysara's response is immediate and lethal, showcasing her combat prowess and reinforcing her legendary status. However, what makes this part significant is not just her martial skill, but her reaction to Jace's intervention. When a raider's hidden blade threatens her, Jace instinctively steps into harm's way, taking the strike himself. This act is crucial for several reasons. First, it reverses the typical alien-human power dynamic. Lysara, who is usually untouchable and feared, suddenly finds herself vulnerable, not physically, but emotionally. Second, it establishes Jace's bravery and decisiveness, qualities that define humans in the HFY context. Humans are portrayed as capable of extraordinary courage, often defying expectations or limitations imposed by alien perceptions. The moment Jace takes the hit serves as a direct emotional catalyst for Lysara. For the first time in her life, someone has risked themselves for her not out of obligation, respect for status, or strategy, but out of genuine concern. This gesture introduces a fundamental human trait into her life: the willingness to place another's well-being above one's own. Lysara, accustomed to being feared and isolated, experiences a whirlwind of new emotions: surprise, confusion, concern, and most importantly, a recognition that she is valued as an individual rather than as a weapon. Lysara's immediate reaction, her mixture of anger and concern, is telling. She is unaccustomed to being treated with such personal care, and the intensity of her feelings underscores the depth of her isolation prior to Jace's arrival. Her question, "Why did you?" conveys both bewilderment and emotional vulnerability. Jace's simple response, "I didn't want you hurt. You mean more than a mission to me," is understated but powerful. It is the first verbal acknowledgement of care and emotional significance that Lysara has ever received. This dialogue demonstrates that humans, in this narrative, operate on a different emotional wavelength than the alien warrior's peers, valuing individual connection, sincerity, and moral courage over fear or hierarchy. Part 3 also explores Lysara's internal transformation. This moment of danger forces her to confront emotions she has long suppressed: fear for another's safety, appreciation for care, and, most importantly, a dawning recognition that she might not be as untouchable as she believed. The incident shatters part of the psychological armor she has maintained for centuries, highlighting a key theme of the story: even the most formidable warriors can be reached through genuine human connection. Moreover, this part sets the stage for the romantic arc by showing that trust and vulnerability are essential precursors to love. Lysara's respect for Jace grows not merely because he is brave or skilled, but because he is willing to act selflessly. This selflessness contrasts with the behavior of her own people, who may respect her for power or fear her for reputation, but rarely act from pure concern. In doing so, the story emphasizes the HFY idea that human qualities, empathy, courage, and moral integrity can influence even the most isolated and extraordinary beings in the galaxy. Finally, Part 3 functions as a narrative bridge. It transitions the story from initial curiosity and interaction, Part 2, to the deeper emotional and romantic development that follows in Part 4. The near-fatal incident and Jace's protective gesture lay the groundwork for Lysara's growing emotional attachment, making her eventual acceptance of human affection believable and compelling. It is the first time she truly experiences emotional connection, signaling a profound shift in her character arc. In summary, Part 3 is both action-driven and emotionally transformative. Through the ambush and Jace's selfless act, Zara begins to confront feelings of vulnerability, trust, and care for another being. This moment highlights the unique qualities of humanity, advances the HFY theme, and establishes the emotional foundation for the romantic development that will unfold in the subsequent parts of the story. Represents the emotional climax of the story and a pivotal turning point in Lysara's personal journey. Up to this point, the narrative has established her as an untouchable alien warrior, legendary in her combat abilities and feared across the galaxy. It has also introduced Jace, a human whose courage, empathy, and curiosity challenge her long-held perceptions. Part 4 moves beyond action and intrigue into the realm of vulnerability, trust, and emotional intimacy. This section highlights how human qualities, empathy, sincerity, and emotional courage can break through even the most formidable barriers, reinforcing the HFY theme that humanity's greatest strengths are often psychological and moral rather than purely physical. The setting of this part is both symbolic and practical. Lysara and Jace stand atop the Citadel's highest tower under the twin moons of Vera. This elevated, open space mirrors the thematic openness that begins to emerge between them. The tower symbolizes a vantage point, not only a literal observation of the world below, but also a figurative perspective on their relationship in Lysara's life. For a character who has always been untouchable in her world, being physically and emotionally exposed at this height signals a willingness to confront new feelings and possibilities. The moons cast a soft light on both characters, visually reinforcing the intimacy and significance of the moment. In this serene but charged environment, Jace speaks words that fundamentally alter Lysara's self-perception. Lysara, you are beautiful. At first glance, these words may seem simple, but within the context of the story, they carry enormous weight. Lysara has spent her life defined by power, skill, and reputation. Her identity has been built around fear and awe, and she has never been acknowledged for her intrinsic qualities beyond her combat prowess. Jace's statement shifts the focus from her abilities to her very being. By calling her beautiful, he recognizes her humanity, her individuality, and her capacity for emotions, subtly affirming that she is more than a weapon or a legend. She is a person worthy of affection and admiration. Her initial reaction, shock, disbelief, and uncertainty underscores the depth of her isolation. Lysara's self-concept has been rigidly structured around survival and strength. The notion that she could be considered beautiful in a human sense is both disarming and transformative. Her hesitation reflects a profound inner struggle. Can she allow herself to be vulnerable and accept recognition for qualities beyond combat? This moment represents the collision of two worlds, the untouchable alien culture of fear and hierarchy, and the human capacity for direct, emotional honesty. Jace's response to her doubt reinforces the sincerity of his words and highlights human emotional intelligence. He does not pressure or manipulate Lysara. Instead, he calmly explains that being a warrior does not preclude beauty, worth, or emotional depth. His reasoning: being a warrior doesn't make you unworthy. It makes you extraordinary. And yes, beautiful bridges the gap between admiration for skill and admiration for self. Here, the story emphasizes a key HFY principle. Humans possess the ability to perceive multi-dimensional qualities in others and communicate recognition in ways that resonate deeply. Even across species, the emotional impact on Lysara is profound. This moment catalyzes a shift in her internal landscape. She experiences recognition and acceptance for the first time, not based on fear or obligation, but on genuine acknowledgement of her individuality. This emotional breakthrough is central to her character arc. Up until now, she has been defined externally by her victories, her fearsome reputation, and the expectations of her society. Jace's words allow her to be seen from within, prompting a newfound awareness of her own emotions, desires, and capacity for connection. Part 4 also strengthens the romantic trajectory of the story. The declaration of beauty is not mere flattery. It is an invitation to trust and emotional intimacy. by acknowledging her intrinsic worth. Jace creates a space where Lysara can consider the possibility of love and companionship. Her gradual acceptance of his words signals the dismantling of emotional barriers, setting the stage for the ultimate union in Part 5. Additionally, this part reinforces the narrative's overarching themes: the transformative power of empathy, the human ability to connect across cultural and species boundaries, and the idea that true strength includes emotional courage. Lysara's reaction demonstrates that even the Mo serves as the conclusion and resolution of the narrative, bringing Lysara's character arc to a full circle while reinforcing the HFY humans are extraordinary theme that underpins the story. Up until this point, Lysara has been an untouchable, legendary warrior, feared, respected, and emotionally isolated. The previous parts detailed her gradual transformation, curiosity sparked by the human Jace, emotional intrigue during shared interactions, a life-threatening event that prompted vulnerability, and finally, an acknowledgement of beauty and worth that challenged her self-perception. Part 5 resolves these threads, showcasing not only the evolution of her personal identity, but also the profound impact of humanity's qualities on alien societies. The opening of Part 5 depicts the immediate consequences of Lysara and Jace's emotional breakthrough. Their relationship, previously private and cautious, becomes visible to the Varen people and the larger political sphere. This visibility is important for two reasons. First, it demonstrates that the internal changes in Lysara are powerful enough to alter perceptions externally, challenging the myth of the untouchable warrior. Second, it emphasizes the ripple effect of human influence, where humans have often been underestimated in alien cultures. Jace's bravery, empathy, and honesty have not only changed Lysara, but also shifted the perceptions of those around her. The transformation is social as well as personal. Lysara is no longer merely a figure of fear, but now embodies the possibility of strength, tempered by emotional depth. The narrative highlights that Lysara's change is not merely emotional, but also strategic and practical. Political adversaries and rival planets notice her vulnerability and attempt to exploit it. This creates tension as it tests whether her newfound openness could compromise her legendary effectiveness as a warrior. However, the story emphasizes a critical HFY theme: the combination of human-like emotional intelligence and alien combat skill produces a form of power that is far greater than raw strength alone. Lysara, supported by Jace, demonstrates that emotional connection can enhance effectiveness rather than diminish it. Together, they confront external threats with synergy, complementing each other's strengths. Her unmatched combat abilities and his human ingenuity, courage, and tactical foresight. A central event in Part 5 is a decisive confrontation with a rival warlord. This scenario allows the story to reinforce Lysara's transformation while illustrating the broader impact of human qualities in alien contexts. Where she might have relied solely on brute force in the past, she now coordinates with Jace, trusting his insight and strategy. Their cooperation underscores the story's core message: humans, while physically weaker in many alien comparisons, possess adaptability, creativity, and relational intelligence that can alter the balance of power. Lysara's effectiveness as a warrior is amplified, not diminished, by her trust in the human by her side. Equally important is the depiction of emotional resolution. Lysara fully acknowledges her feelings for Jace, realizing that her untouchable persona was a defense mechanism, not a reflection of her true self. This acknowledgement is a key turning point. It signifies the dismantling of centuries of isolation and fear. By embracing love and connection, she demonstrates that vulnerability does not equate to weakness. On the contrary, it is a source of profound strength. The story thus challenges traditional perceptions of power, suggesting that true greatness combines capability with empathy and trust. The resolution also reinforces the story's romantic arc. Lysara's acceptance of human affection is not a superficial or forced plot device. It is the logical culmination of her journey from fear and isolation to emotional openness. Jace's consistent bravery, care, and honesty have earned her trust and admiration. Their union represents the merging of alien might and human relational intelligence. Illustrating a broader HFY theme, humanity's influence in the galaxy derives not only from physical achievements but from the ability to inspire, connect, and transform others. Finally, Part 5 closes the narrative with a sense of lasting change. Lysara, once untouchable and feared, becomes a symbol of possibility. Even the most isolated, legendary, and powerful beings can be reached and transformed by courage, empathy, and genuine care. The story emphasizes that humans, though often underestimated, have an extraordinary capacity to affect the galaxy in profound ways through words, actions, and emotional authenticity. Lysara's journey from fearsome isolation to love, trust, and cooperation embodies this message, providing a satisfying and thematically consistent conclusion. In summary, Part 5 resolves the story by demonstrating Lysara's full transformation from untouchable warrior to emotionally connected leader, emphasizing the HFY theme that humanity's greatest strengths lie in courage, empathy, and the capacity to form meaningful connections. It highlights the strategic and emotional power of combining human qualities with alien abilities, illustrates the ripple effect of influence on broader society, and completes the romantic arc, leaving the reader with a sense of empowerment, hope, and the enduring impact of human presence in a galaxy of extraordinary beings.